Welcome, Larissa, to the Vulnerable Voices podcast with your host, me, Nisha Mystery. I'm super excited to have a chat with you today. All things healing. I know you've got a really profound journey that we'll explore and a lot of learnings along the way that, be really helpful for me to understand and get to know you a little bit better. I know, having spoken to you before, you are a really strong human being, and given where you're at now, you're doing a lot to help others too on their journey. So something to be really incredibly proud of. And so I'm really excited to have a chat to you today. And yeah, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Nisha. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me on your podcast. Yes, it's been a pleasure talking with you over the course of the past month or so, and I'm very excited to be here. I am an intuitive healer, a Reiki master hypnotherapist, and soul-led travel advisor. So I help people with their inner and outer journeys, wherever they are in the world and wherever they're at in their healing journey. So I'm very excited to share a little bit more as we go through and at what has led me to this place in my life.
Amazing. No, thank you. There are so many little pockets of healing that you're offering, and I love that. And I think I'd actually like to break down some of those ones first for anyone watching who might not understand some of the offerings that you've got and what it actually entails. So if you don't mind going through some of the things that you offer as a healing space, as your own business, what are each one and what do they entail?
Yeah, definitely. So with the intuitive healing aspect, that's just part of my natural intuitive healing abilities that I'm able to help read people and get a better understanding on a more deeper level what they're going through and how I can best support them. In addition to that, I've learned some different modalities, one of them being Reiki. I've gone through all three levels of Reiki and become a Reiki master, which allows me to also teach others the art of Reiki and the healing abilities of Reiki. And so that's been transformative. And then I've also become a hypnotherapist where I help people rewire their subconscious programming so that they can remove limiting beliefs and get a deeper understanding of who they are at their core to rewire their neural pathways and allow them to live the life they've always dreamed of. So it's all of these different modalities, in addition to astrology and soul-led travel, that have really truly allowed me to expand my offerings in a way that best supports my clients and utilizes my gifts and talents that I have intuitively received and that I go through along my life in terms of learning different modalities as I travel the world.
I love that. And I know the word Reiki in particular, and this is what calls to me, because having spoken to people in my community and in general sort of work that I do, Reiki seems to come up as a topic. But I feel like not a lot of people actually understand what happens during a Reiki healing or, when someone's doing Reiki on you. Can you explain what actually happens or what that healing is?
Yeah, so Reiki, if we break down the word, Rei meaning universal and Ki meaning life force energy. So a lot of times people have heard of Qi in Chinese or, our Qi that we have when we receive acupuncture, we move Qi around. So Ki is the Japanese version of Qi, which is Chinese, or prana in Hindu. So we have these different versions of life force energy call in the US in the American language or in UK. So Reiki is universal life force energy that exists everywhere. It's in us and around us, and it just allows us to channel that Reiki energy in a way that allows the body's natural ability to heal itself unfold. And so it's very intuitive. It's something that's very supportive. And with the guidance of a Reiki practitioner, we're able to help heal ourselves in a fashion that just basically expedites the healing process and allows the body to be in a safe space to heal itself.
Do you think safety is key in like humans as a whole in order to function at our best and sort of be at full capacity of our energy levels and how we connect and the kind of soul journey that some of us want to go on? Do you think safety is one of the key elements with the work that you do with people?
I think safety has actually come up a lot lately in the sense of when we're safe, we're actually not really growing. I would say that there's an intuitive aspect to Reiki and to the healing work that I do that creates this space that some can be seen as safe, a safe space to foster that healing opportunity. And yet,
Mm.
not safe in the sense that it's stagnant. It's safe in the way that it's supportive while still being challenging to move through the things that we need to move through. So safe is kind of shifted. I think its meaning as of late. I've just heard it come up quite a bit and people asking what my take is on the word. And I mean, obviously, we cannot feel safe all the time. Life is full of challenges. And so I think the word safe is kind of, a lot of people can see it as plain small. And so we don't really want to be safe necessarily, as we do want to be challenged in a supportive way. So I'd like to kind of shift that definition a little bit, but also the perspective in that we are consistently growing. And as long as we're being challenged in a healthy way, we continue to grow. So it's not less about being safe, I would say, in that regard.
I love that, and it's honestly one of the best answers I've heard in a very long time because actually it's getting comfortable to get uncomfortable, and it's that shift, and I really like the way that you worded that. I think it's brilliant, because it's so true. Our comfort zone is what keeps us small. It keeps us kind of shrinking ourselves. It keeps us in like a box almost. And so I like the way that you said, yes, you create these safe spaces, but the whole point is so that you can be free and to be uncomfortable and experience those emotions or trauma or things that come up that may be really uncomfortable for someone, but they're allowed to express that. They're allowed to have that space for it. So I really like the way that you put that and challenging the norm around the word safety. So thank you. That was absolutely brilliant. Would you say you've always been like a naturally intuitive kind of person?
Yes, I believe I've always have been. Definitely seen the world in a different way than most people. The youngest in my family, and definitely a more introverted person naturally growing up, more shy. And I think being in that type of persona has allowed me to be more in an observatory role. And so I've just kind of really been heightened to certain energies and just had a more sensitive demeanor to things. And so I think that I've always had that aspect. I just wasn't sure such an early age, how to necessarily work with that or channel that in a really supportive way. So it wasn't until I became an adult that I learned how to utilize those gifts.
Did you find some of the energies that you're absorbing? So similar to me, I'm quite introverted, but around the right company and conversation and the safety to feel my authentic self, I almost come out of my shell a little bit and I am authentic in those spaces and are more extroverted, they say. But do you feel like having absorbed energies around you, it impacted your health in any way, shape, or form, whether physically? So for me, I would get certain pains in certain areas of my body, particularly around the gut area or in like the upper chest area. And it was almost like signaling there's too much energy or emotion I'm absorbing, but not a space for it to be released healthily. How did that sort of show up for you, if it did happen for you?
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of had a similar path in that I was more sensitive and more reserved. And so I held on to things, whether it was things that I absorbed, the emotions, the energies, not fully grasping and understanding what was going on, but still being sensitive to it. So in that way, I think I did absorb some that could have been seen, as unhealthy, and that it just kind of settled in my body. Dealt with some lower back pain when I was younger, a little bit of weight gain. I think I tended to just hold on to it emotionally in my body, which caused the weight gain, not necessarily realizing why, but just being more of a sponge to it. And then, yeah, I think just over time, not releasing verbally, really just holding on to things, it did affect me more so as an adult to where I had to work through those things and heal through a lot of the things, whether they were traumas as a child that I did encounter or just, my sensitivity and realizing what's mine to absorb and what's not mine to absorb and, work with. So yeah, definitely getting a better understanding of who I am at my core.
Yeah, no, it's really key, isn't it? It's almost like having a barrier to what is yours and what isn't, and then knowing when to release it. But sometimes I feel, and a lot of the guests that I've had in terms of growing up and modeled behavior around expressing emotion, just even just saying how you're feeling day to day, being able to comfortably say that to your family members or people around you. It is hard a lot of the time. It's not always modeled in a healthy way. With your surroundings, friends, family, people you grew up with, did anyone around you express how they were feeling, or did you see like healthy examples of expression of emotion?
That is actually kind of a difficult question for me to answer because I grew up on a farm and ranch and I grew up with a lot of masculine energy. I grew up with three older brothers and was the only girl, the youngest. And there was a lot of male workers on the farm. It was a partnership with other extended family. And so there was a lot of male figures. And so I feel like a lot of my feminine was very repressed. I was definitely something that I kept inside. I oftentimes was seen as a little bit of a tomboy because I really wanted to be outside and do the things that the boys were doing. But it was very much a traditional household, and the boys were outside and the girls were inside, cooking and cleaning. And so I don't feel like there was ever really room or opportunity to really discuss our emotions or even explore what we were going through on an emotional level. It was very much work service oriented. And that was our how we showed our love and our commitment and dedication through the hard work and doing all of our parts to make the farm run and the ranch run. And so it wasn't something that we really discussed. I mean, we had great conversations around meal times, but it was often about the work we were doing and what the situations were that were unfolding at the time. It wasn't really about emotions or what we were going on through on an emotional level.
Yeah, no, thank you for being brave to share that because I think a lot of people can resonate with that, in certain aspects. Even culturally, for me, you see households where it's the day to day, isn't it? It's less so about how you're actually feeling, how the day's impacted you, healthy ways to kind of release them, maybe especially particularly anger or frustration. Anger is one of the emotions, but actually collectively it could be you're frustrated, you're passionate, but a healthy way to express it isn't always shown or encouraged. And I know a lot of people I speak to within this field of mental health and things like that, it's one of the things they almost needed growing up. But there comes a point where you start growing up and you go, actually, there are some things I can sort of take accountability for. And I think it's time for me to have a change in terms of the way that I'm living and soften into that femininity and really embrace that, we do have emotions to express. How did that shift happen for you, or when did that start happening when you go, actually, I deserve the space to feel and heal?
I don't think there was an exact time when I discovered that. I think it happened naturally as I left my hometown at the age of 18 and became an exchange student in Argentina. The things that were kind of sheltered or hidden below the surface had no place to go but out. And so it came up, even if I didn't do anything to kind of invoke that necessarily, it was just naturally surfacing. And so, it wasn't something that I think I was intentional about or that I went and sought, certain things for to allow that to come to the surface. It just naturally happened.
Mm.
And so it kind of was a little disruptive, I'm not gonna lie, in terms of, just how it came up. And I didn't really understand what was coming up for me, didn't know how to process it properly. It became very religious and very spiritual at the time. It turned into a bit of a mental health issue for me, but also very much spiritual enlightenment. So I'm very grateful for that experience. Now, further fast forwarding as of last year, looking at as I was studying astrology, I learned that on my astrological map, my blueprint of the world, we have lines based off of our blueprint throughout the world on where certain energies can come up and what the energies of that area are going to look like in correspondence to our birth chart. And lo and behold, I found this line, it was a Pluto line, which is the planet of transformation, right through the location where I was living at the time when I was 18. And it can be very disruptive. It's very much about transforming, but it can be very challenging, especially without knowing this. So this was 20 some years later, I realized that I had this astrology line through the area where I was living as an
Mhm.
18-year-old, and so it fully explains to me in retrospect why I went through what I went through. It's very clear to me that that was meant to happen. Now, I'm still trying to understand everything that I encountered and that I went through, but it was a very transformational piece to my healing journey, a very much
Wow.
of a time of my life that caused some disruption and unknown information, but resurfaced a lot of traumas that needed to come up to be healed. So that's when I had my first flashbacks of certain traumas when I was a 3-year-old and had just went through this really eye-opening perspective of what was happening on a deeper level of things and events that happened when I was younger.
Wow. It's incredible also how astrology plays a huge part in it. It's only until you look in hindsight or retrospect of it starts clicking into place going, oh my God, it's accurate. It's actually I was going through that at that time period. And when we're going through it, it's one of the hardest. It comes at you when you least expect it. You're thrown off track when you think, you know what, I'm okay. And then all of a sudden, something comes to come and crash you. And that's what happened to me. It was around 21, it's about 10 years ago, and the complete crash, the identity crisis and the loss came. And that's when I was suicidal. And I just didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't, looking back now, like you said, you realize why that had to happen, who you've become because of it, the strength you've gained, the knowledge. But actually, when you're going through it, it's one of the hardest things ever. And it can be quite isolating and confronting. When you were going through that sort of transformation and, really difficult period, what little steps did you start doing or getting support from to kind of understand or just feel less alone in that process?
Well, when I was going through it, like actually going through it, when I was in Argentina by myself, I had a host family that I lived with, but going through this experience that was deeply personal on my own, I had no choice but to lean onto my faith. And so I was raised Catholic, so I became deeply religious during that time and really leaned into my faith. And so these downloads, this information that I was getting wasn't really from this realm. It was very much from God, from, Jesus, from Mother Mary, from all these like higher power entities that I couldn't quite gather or understand fully, but I knew that they were meant for me. And I was trying to understand what these messages and downloads were. But to the human form, to most people on the outside, if I were to try to explain it, I probably sounded completely crazy. And so that's where on the Western side of things, it could have been seen as, a bit of psychosis and a mental health crises, but it was very much supportive. That's where I gleaned on my support was from a spiritual standpoint, from a higher power standpoint, because that's really all I had down there. And so it was a pivotal time in me discovering my own aspects of leadership too in my higher self.
Mm.
But for me, it was more fragmented, less about who I was as in my higher self, and more so leaning on to a higher power.
Faith is massive, isn't it? You have to, when you're at that point, you only have faith to keep you going. And it's the little steps every day and the things that you say to yourself to kind of re invoke that faith. And actually, it's almost like that higher power that you connected to back to your religion and, that spiritual aspect of healing it's something that actually understands you. And without having to over explain to anyone or anything around you what's going on, it doesn't question it. And you're allowed that space then to feel, to navigate and to almost sit in that, they call it the lonely void, but it's basically that time period where you are really just looking inward, and then that is what guides you then to take the next forward step in the right direction. I know you mentioned to me previously a few things that you had gone through and things that I know a lot of people have gone through, and someone I'd spoke to recently had experienced grief and loss. If you feel comfortable sharing the time period during COVID. And I know you mentioned you lost your father during that time period. I'm really, really sorry. And I know can't imagine what that might feel like. Would you be able to share a bit of what that experience was like? How did grief show up for you in that loss?
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate the question. It's something that I've done a lot of healing work around, and even just hearing you talk about it, it definitely invokes emotion for sure, and some tears come up. It's interesting how death can come in a way that we'd never imagine. My father was 92 when he passed, so he lived a very long, full life and was a very vibrant person who had a very intense, young, youthful spirit and was very jovial a lot of times and really truly enjoyed life and took it seriously. He didn't take it for granted. Every day he really had an intention of what he wanted for his day, and he succeeded at everything that he put forth effort on. He really truly did, and he loved his family, he loved his friends immensely, and he really truly loved life. There's so much that I've learned from my father and that I miss in our relationship together. And so during COVID, a lot of us, I mean, it was a very bizarre time for so many of us, and so it was really challenging to think that that's how he was going to pass. And so he contracted COVID in November of 2020. He just turned 92 in October. And, we thought we had kind of were on the other side of the acute moment of COVID and how scary it was, and didn't think ever that he would be affected by it. But, he's part of that demographic, the older demographic, and also Hispanic that unfortunately it did affect pretty heavily. And he was in excellent shape otherwise. So we really truly thought, if he didn't contract COVID, he would have lasted a lot longer. But I do also believe and trust and understand that it was his time. And so whether or not, it was COVID officially that took him, I do know that it was his time. And while it was one of the most challenging things that I've ever gone through in my life, it has also been one of the most beautiful things I've ever gone through. So I think for me, that's been the silver lining, and realizing how beautiful death can be, even though it is by far the most challenging thing I've ever gone through,
Yeah,
losing a
I think
parent.
Yeah, I think anyone watching can, who've been through similar to you can absolutely resonate. It is hard. It's almost loss can also come up as physical pain. People don't realize that the impact it has on your body. It's like losing a limb. And it's like you have to find a way to navigate, but you've lost something that you used to be day in, day out with. And you have such a beautiful relationship with your dad that you mentioned. And I feel for you in the sense of the time period of COVID, but you bravely shared that you accepted that maybe that was the time for it. And it's incredibly brave to share it in that way. In hindsight, it does that to you. Time, you accept it a bit more. But in that period, it is painful. It is, you think, why me? You kind of you question a lot, and that's just how my mind would go, because in the first instinct it's you must deny that's happened for a bit. You can't quite fathom what's just happened in the loss. And then you try and work through it that way. How did you personally get impacted by the loss, your own well-being during this period of time?
It was huge. I mean, it truly rocked my world, and especially because it was COVID, we couldn't see him. I wasn't physically there with him when he passed. We couldn't have any services right away because that wasn't allowed. And so I think it really was very challenging. It really rocked my world, and that's where I leaned on astrology. Honestly, that was the only thing to me during that time that made sense when the world made absolutely no sense. And that's how I was able to translate and understand what was going on for me energetically, collectively. That was my saving grace. And so it really shifted. It was interesting how when he passed, my relationship with my higher self and also my spirituality really shifted years before that as well, but really during this time where I leaned on, the Reiki energy, the astrology, my faith for sure,
Mm.
and others for support, but really the physical piece is very real. I mean, I felt physical pain in my chest, like it was so funny in the way my higher self kind of led me through it. Is I would get this sharp acute pain, and I never thought I would ever feel that pain of
Mm.
like somebody shooting, like just literally in the chest, like this deep, deep, deep pain. And on comes onto my to my subconscious or my light, my brain, the Bon Jovi song "Shot Through the Heart." It was just like, oh my. So cheesy. But it was that humor that kinda got me through it. So it was music that kinda got me through it, even if it was literally just on in my brain. It wasn't, like, playing outside or anything like that. And so I was grateful for the humor part of it, but it was a lot of ups and downs, and because he passed in November and we couldn't do anything with services, it was really up until the following year, the following summer, when things opened up, and so, funny enough, he wanted a very, very quiet transition. He was the type that had everything planned out. He had his, you know, things paid for, all of his afterlife services, everything covered, and so it was funny how he wanted everything to be very quiet, very simple, and he ended up having a massive service because we had one for Father's Day, we had a memorial mass, and then we actually had his
Oh,
cremation and burial on the 4th of July when we always got together with him where he loves to go in the mountain property that we have as a family. And so it was this huge celebration, and it was something that even though he wanted something very simple and quiet, it ended up being this large celebration and ended up being very beautiful, and that's the part that I'm speaking to that ended up being one of the most beautiful things I've ever gone through, and just seeing the synchronicities and how things unfolded so beautifully, his spirit, it reminded me and showed me that our spirit is expansive, especially after we pass. I do believe it's almost like he sprinkled his love everywhere throughout all of these ceremonies and these memorials. So it was a very beautiful time as well.
I love that. It's a very beautiful way to look at it because often there comes a sadness that comes with someone passing so close to you and having to actually face people around you and the reality that they're no longer here. But I think there's a important message that you've just shared, which is celebrating that person's life and all the beautiful things that they did, the wisdom they shared. It's kind of their life path that they had, and also the impact that they've had as one individual on all of these people that are there for this one person. One beautiful person has impacted so many people. And I think it's such a beautiful message that you just shared. It's a celebration of life. It's very, very difficult. And my question coming up for me is how was it from, because COVID was really confusing. It happens, but then you wait long periods to then actually do a service. Did that almost set you back from the first time you felt the grief and loss? Or was that enough time to kind of then make it a celebration of his life and those feelings weren't so predominant?
Yeah, I think it truly just unfolded as beautifully as it could have. I don't think could have unfolded any other way differently. It was several months after his passing that, speaking of music being very healing, that I had a dream about him. And he came to me, and then I was able to channel a song that came up with my husband. And we wrote a song together, and I was able to play it at his memorial. And it was such a healing moment for me and a transformative process. And it was just a beautiful thing, but I don't think it could have come up any other time. It came up when it needed to. I wouldn't have had that time to practice it before the service, had his service been like a week after he died, like we often do. And so it was very beautiful. I think it aided in that grief cycle to give me that space and time to grief in a way that was very peculiar with given the fact that it was COVID and there's no right or wrong way to grieve, so it just allowed a lot of space for that, even though the space and time thing is very skewed within that time period.
Yeah, I love that. A song, how beautiful. And the real soul connection there is that he came to you in your dream. And people don't realize how powerful these dreams can be. When you dream of people or the synchronicities of when someone's thinking about you and you get a message or they pop up somewhere, I think that in itself, you've got a really deep connection there. And there's a message in it, whether you look into it and act on it in the way that feels right for you. Or, a lot of people are like, oh, it's just a dream. It is what it is. But I love that aspect of you welcoming to it. And it's actually aided the healing of losing your dad. But actually, you've still got a really deep connection there. And it's so, so beautiful. Songwriting, music is healing. It heals the nervous system. And it's a form of expression, isn't it? It's a way to put things to a rhythm or a message without it being so static. And the sound of the music and the rhythm really heals our nervous system. And how is that is that pain now? Like, is it something that over time it's sort of decreased and you're like, "Oh, it was me processing the things that were stuck there." And how is that for you now, that pain, if it's there?
Yeah, no, it definitely hasn't been as acute, and it was only, like, 1 or 2 instances where it was so acute, I felt like I was gonna have a heart attack or something. It was just so painful. And no, I think it's shifted now, and even in the dream I had of him, he was doing so well, like, he was just so happy and so healthy. And so it was just, a different realm of him, and it was his essence of his spirit, and so it was really beautiful, and it's been such a transformative experience, and yeah, music has really been a healing modality for it, and there was a lot of he loved music too, and so we were able to play a lot of his favorite songs for him and create, that with his slideshow and everything, so that's helped tremendously. I continue to sing and, make not really write music as much, but play music and think of him often during that time, and it's really special, or a song will come on that I reminds me of him, and it's really special and healing, so his spirit definitely lives on for sure.
Oh, I love that. You know the song that you mentioned before that came up for you? Is that a song that was played, in and amongst you guys, or a favorite song, or is it
No,
just the
it's just
words of
literally
something that
no.
resonated?
It
No?
was just something it was just the lyrics. I think it was my subconscious higher self being funny, and Spirit being funny of Bon Jovi, Shot Through the Heart, it's such a kind of cheesy song from the 90s or whatever that was, I guess late '80s, '90s. Uh, and it was like I think I was upset. I was upset that my dad had passed. I was upset, like, it was like I was feeling him, "It's shot through the heart and you're to blame, you gave love a bad name." That's the lyrics, and it's obviously a love song, kind of a breakup love song, but it was kinda like that feeling, I loved my father so deeply and immensely, and it was like, "Oh, why did you have to die?" But also, like, this is just part of the process. This is what I have to go through. Humor and music is making it a little bit lighter, even though I'm really feeling like I got shot through the heart, So, yeah, it's just kind of a silly, kind of fun moment. Think it fun is, like, obviously not the correct word, but, it was a very challenging moment, but allowed music, that lightheartedness and humor to kind of allow me to ride that wave with a little bit more grace.
It's so important to also be open to those lighter moments because a lot of the time when you're going through a really difficult phase or transition or like a trauma, it gets really heavy, doesn't it? And sometimes we don't feel we deserve those lighter moments because it's either not enough time has passed for us to feel lighter, or but actually embraced it. You went, "Do you know what? It's come to me at the right time to give me that little uplift and a little bit of strength to keep going." And do you know what? You've just given the message that it's okay to accept that sometimes. Some people say, "Why am I laughing when it's such a difficult period?" Actually, it's part of the acceptance. It's part of being able to move forward and feel deserving of those lighter moments. So I'm glad you embraced that and it seemed to be great for you in that moment. But healing isn't always linear, they say, and there's so much out there about the up and down about healing. What is your take on healing and the whole journey for yourself and the ups and downs? Because everyone's journey is different, so we can only speak for ourselves. But I definitely know in my journey, it's been up and then a bit consistent, and then it will drop, and then I'm like in a hole again. Sometimes worse than where I was before, or sometimes just a bit above. What would you say to the whole healing isn't linear journey?
Yeah, I think it's something that constantly evolves and changes, and I don't think there's one right way or wrong way to heal. It is not linear. As of late, I've put out a lot of content in describing and validating that, at least for me right now, it feels very cyclical, circular more so than anything. Not cyclical in the sense that we're going through the same things every time, because they're always different. It's just that it's more circular, so I think we kind of ebb and flow through different ways of healing, but it's not even up and down or, left and right. It's very much circular and kind of twists and turns, and it can go in many different avenues and different forms. And so especially as an intuitive healer and an energy practitioner with energy medicine. Energy is everywhere. And so everything, even the inanimate objects, physical form objects, are literally particles of energy. And so it can go in multiple directions, 100%. So it's not something that is one way. And like you said, it is different for everybody. Is very it's a journey. It's a journey, and it's never one destination for sure.
How did you know, like, the path to the healing that you explored and are offering to people was right for you?
That's a great question. I think for me, it was having explored the Western mentality and Western way of medicine for lack of better awareness and knowledge, growing up to where I was pretty much a rule follower, accepted whatever I was told as truth and didn't really question things too much. And it wasn't until I ventured down the Western route of what was going on for me that I realized this is not it for me. This is not what resonates. And in fact, it was pretty traumatic what I was told or diagnosed with and given as a prescription and as medicine for the rest of my life when
Mm,
that actually isn't even the healing path that is healing for me. So it took me going down that route for years and going through college through that to realize on the other side as an adult that it was these healing modalities that were more holistic in nature. So such as massage was a big one for me. And within massage is where I learned energy medicine, about energy medicine. And
mm.
then I learned about Reiki, and then I learned about hypnotherapy and then acupuncture and all these other healing modalities that allow me to tap into my spirit and my higher self on a deeper level to realize that there's really nothing wrong with me, quote unquote. It's more about addressing these hidden emotions and these things that I've gone through that I wasn't really given a platform to do in other avenues of my life, especially within the Western medicine route. And not to say that it doesn't have its place or that it can't be useful. I think just the way that had gone through that was really what I needed to go through to realize all the other benefits of a holistic practice and what is truly resonant for me. And so wasn't until I did that deeper healing work and continued to do the work that I do as a practitioner that I realized that that is basically where my healing journey lies, and that has been such a blessing for me.
I love that. And I'm glad that you explored that way for you because you know what, it felt probably for you right, completely right and authentic to you and your journey because a lot of healing is down to the person itself. It's not for anyone to sort of dictate or kind of sway towards one way because it works for them. It's actually your own self. What advice would you give to someone if they ask you the question, how do I look inward? How do I connect with my inner self, my intuition? What kind of advice would you give there? Because it sounds bigger than the actual thing. That's what I've learned. But what would you say to someone who says, how do I connect with myself?
Well, there's various ways. I think a lot of people come to me and wanting to connect with their self on a deeper level, or there's something that they're going through that they're not quite sure how to go through it alone or how to tap into what their higher consciousness is informing them on without support. So that's a lot of the work I do in supporting people through transformative journeys and the program and offerings that I have for people. For really truly for those folks, I'm really just holding space. So they're doing the deeper work. And so for someone to just get to know themselves more, they've talked about this on another podcast, but it's as simple as doing some journaling, creating space where you can be quiet with yourself and nature, stepping outside in nature, listening to the sounds that are out there, even if you are in a busy city, sometimes you can still be in that busy city and still connect to your higher self on a deeper level just by staying rooted and grounded in who you are and connecting and going inward. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer when we're in a lot of other energies that are created by humankind versus nature. So
Mhm.
it just depends on the person, of course. Astrology has been a huge piece, a blueprint for people to uncover who they truly are at their core when we go into their natal blueprint and understanding the energies that were there at their time of birth and how they've been created. and work with them in that co-creation process throughout not only their natal charts, but then their solar return charts and solar return blueprints. So that's been a huge guide and aiding force for people to get to know themselves more and connect with their higher self. But hypnotherapy has been one of the also most transformative practices along with Reiki. So it's been all these modalities that I do that have been just monumental and very instrumental for my clients and for my own healing journey. But it can be as simple as just being connected with nature and allowing yourself time to connect with your higher self through meditation or simple mindfulness practices.
We are nature. I was literally talking to someone about this the other day. We are nature. So syncing with nature helps us. We are like animals, the moon cycles, the tides are going when there's a full moon. We are made up of water. Quote me, I think 75%, but correct me if I'm wrong, of water. So of course
Right.
we are also going to be impacted by that. Women, our cycles as well sync up with the moon. And it's just like we forget our primal selves in terms of what actually makes us feel good. And do you know what? A lot of it is quite simple of connecting with nature, connecting with people, really understanding our cycles and being able to like accept that and not resist it. I think the resistance around natural healing, holistic therapy is is very predominant and there is so much skepticism around it. But what would you say to someone who's skeptical about it, but you might think, "Do you know what? It's worth, being intuitive and looking inward. It's worth giving it a go." What would you say to someone else really skeptical about the work that you do? What would you sort of like say to them about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, in short, I would kind of break it down to them to help them understand how everything is energy. But mostly, really, what I would the quickest way is to explain to them what fear is, right? The false evidence appearing real. And so, if we don't understand something, then we are going to create fear around it. And once they have experienced such modality, so I would invite them actually to have a free call with me, where we would have an empowerment session and do a little bit of that work so that they can understand it for themselves and what it means. And so, I think that a lot of times people have to actually experience that in order to allow it to resonate or find that connection. So I'd invite them to kind of be open to it, and then once we explore what it means to them and help them understand it on a personal level, it's typically it's pretty straightforward at that point. And yes, I think that absolutely being part of human nature and humankind, we are absolutely part of nature. Once we learn to co-create with, all of our surroundings, that's where the beauty and the flow
Do you
comes into
think
play.
society as it is now has been constructed, or I like to always reference it as the matrix? And this social construct based on, I don't know who based it on, definitely not in tune with nature, impacting our ability as humans to actually be with nature and respect ourselves and the kind of jobs that people are in as well. We don't have enough time for ourselves in that space. A simple 10-minute walk people don't have. What's your view on like society now and how we're living and how it's impacting our essential healing journeys or being able to heal certain parts of us and connect with nature?
Well, I think something that we oftentimes forget, and it's interesting what you're saying brings up a point of a speech. Actually, I spoke at my high school graduation at the age of 18. And it reminds me of that speech and that we are the creators of our reality. And I think we forget that. We forget that we're co-creators in this process. We just accept reality as what it is and what other people have told us it to be, and forget that our perception of it is our reality. So
Mhm.
it's not so much to break it down into, this is what's happening on the outside and this is how I'm responding to it. It's taking ownership of our reality of our life and realizing that we're co-creators. And so we can shift that dynamic at any point in time and create it to be whatever we want it to be. It's purely a mirror. And I think we oftentimes forget that. We tend to put the blame onto other situations or leaders or the outside realm versus what we're actually experiencing. on a personal level and how we play a role in our reality. It's amazing, and it's just a shift in consciousness, and once we realize that we have that ability to create our reality, it's a beautiful thing. It really is, and it's one of those things that's so simple, but we make it so complex a lot of times, just as you were saying earlier.
I love that. I love that you're challenging me on some things too, which is absolutely brilliant because it's true. It's the blame shift, isn't it? Actually, it comes down to this is what a lot of work I do with like coaching and my own life is you got to take accountability too. It's you cannot like something for a while. And I definitely had a moment when I was healing when I was younger and I used to blame and say it was this, and this. But there comes a point where you go, actually, I have control over my life and the direction and connections that are made. And what actually resonates and sits well with me, I can intuitively also question myself and go, does this feel right? If it doesn't, am I staying? Why am I staying? And if I am staying, what's stopping me from moving in a different direction? So I love that you challenge this too. This is absolutely brilliant. And I love that you went back to your school to share that because at such a young age, when they're in that mode of education and looking at the next thing, some people go, school, further studies, get your job, get, I don't know, a master's, PhD, et cetera, and then get a great job. But along that way, you kind of forget to intuitively go with what you enjoy, your natural talents and abilities are, your impact on other people. And there are paths down that way if people choose to. You have a choice. So I really love that you said that. It's brilliant. And have you ever, before with your businesses and what you offer, were you ever in those worlds of like work environments where you felt like you were small or you had to shrink yourself?
Yes, absolutely. All the time. I think that that's something that, we've been socialized to believe that we, like you say, we go and graduate high school, graduate college, get a great job, whatever it may be, have a family. And so I did all of those things, but through all of those things, without following my true intuitive path in terms of what my higher self is calling for and what I'm here for on a higher level and higher purpose, it absolutely, I continue to do things like that where just as being a human, where I'll do things that I think I'm supposed to be doing, but it's not necessarily tapping into my higher calling in a way to serve the greater good, for whatever that looks like, or what we've been socialized to believe is a good job or a good way to go. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think that that's something that all of us as humans do, and trying to find our path and how to best serve others and what our callings and passions are, realizing that that can change over time and it's never just one thing that we're meant for a lot of different things in this lifetime. And it's about choosing those paths that are most in alignment with us and continuing to make those choices every day, even if we're not where we want to be at this time.
No, absolutely. It's the choice, isn't it? And I like that you're honing in on that because when you're going through a transformation or you're at your lowest point, it's choosing to sit with yourself, it's choosing to move forward differently, it's choosing to find ways and also people that you're surrounded by in a healthier way to enable that journey for you. Do you ever have to reassess during your transition, reassess your environment and also the people around you in order to move in that healthier direction that you are now?
Yes, absolutely. That happens all the time where certain relationships in my life have just naturally ebbed and flowed away. And then others come in that are just supportive, or people that I never imagined would be super supportive in my life have come through. There's been a lot of new relationships that have come into my life, and I would have never even dreamed of. I mean, even just meeting you, across the world, it's like, how do we connect so well, and just receiving that connection with someone that you never would have imagined that you would connect with or didn't even know that person existed. And then you make this connection. You're like, wow, this is really amazing and special that these things can come up. And so I think it's been such an amazing journey to realize, at those moments where I do feel super lonely and like, where's my place in this world? And then and I meet other people or connect with other people, and I realize this is what it's about, is really building that community and finding those connections with others, and we do need other people in our life, we cannot go it alone. But yeah, tapping into our higher self is a co-creative process, it's not something that we truly can go and encounter on our own.
Absolutely. And how has that then impacted or strengthened your mental and emotional health, physical and spiritual? So like as a whole, how is that? I would say strengthen. I'm going to use the word strengthen here.
I love that, and I do think it is a strength because I think when we realize that we're not alone, we're in this world together, and we're all interconnected, that it is a strength when we can look at it in that perspective. It's when we separate and we feel more isolated and we blame and we, put in those alternative intentions of separation where things can get really difficult, on a personal level more so than anything, but it becomes very outward and political, right? And so I think we're facing that. We're realizing that within our political climate that however we interpret that to be. But again, I believe it I really feel like truly the only and I even tell this to my clients sometimes I've said, if they're distracted by the news or going into that, that we are the creators of our news. We create the news. And so it is whatever you want it to be. If you're going to have that fed from the outside in, that's where things can get tricky, and you have to be very discerning about that. But if you learn that we are the creators of our news and we be the change you wanna see,
Mhm.
what a beautiful life that can be if we all realize our potential and work together in unison towards that. So it's a constant, work in progress and something that we are constantly journeying towards, I believe a lot of us are in tune to that. So it's about coming together and realizing that we're all interconnected.
Yeah, definitely then collectively, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, you start feeling the shift because actually you start feeling a bit more. You've got better tools, you've got better ways to express, you've got people to talk to, and also I think learn from as well. I think as humans, we naturally absorb loads of information, but you can choose what information you're choosing to absorb, which is by sharing and talking to people that are aligned to you or maybe have experience in a different way that can help you. So yeah, I think it's so right. And I am gonna admit this. I the brief news, but then the rest of it, I don't watch because it can be a lot. It's a lot of negative energy and, you can I cut it off because I wanna be aware about what's happening in the world, but equally, I don't want it to impact my overall well-being, and it has done in the past. Even if you're not directly watching it or even social media, the things that are being fed that you're scrolling through, we don't realize our brains are still processing and absorbing it, and like you said at the very beginning when we started talking, as an introvert or someone who absorbs a lot of energy and information, it sticks and it will come up later. And you don't realize actually it takes 6 days to process all of that stuff that you've seen. And then it can come up in dreams or different ways. Yeah. What is are you a news watcher for like a few minutes or no news at all? Where are you with the news and TV and things like that?
Yeah, it's so funny we're having this conversation because I honestly and I don't know why I brought it up only to prove that point that I really don't. I do not subscribe to news. I'm not a TV person. Even movies are hard for me, TV shows. I just don't subscribe to media as much, even though I actually studied a lot of it in college. I got my degree in communications. It's truly, I think I go back to that inner journey that we create the news. And so, life is a mirror and it is perception is reality. And so it's how we perceive the world. So we can get it from the external sources or we can create it ourselves. And I do truly believe that if it's something I need to know about, I don't take it as being naive or being shut out to the world. I actually think of it as the opposite. When we're in tune with ourselves and super grounded, being our most authentic self, I think that's our greatest expression of being in tune with the world. So I think once we realize that we can create our reality, again, it goes back to that, then that is our news. That is the state of the world as we know it. And not in a narcissistic or egotistical way, but realizing that we're interconnected and our choices that we make every single day not only but impact ourselves if we align with our higher self, but affect the rest of the world. So I think it's very much a shift in perspective. And I do believe that if it's something I need to know about, I will know about it. I will be aware.
Yes.
It's just gonna be what it is. It's just naturally going to come into my ether if it's something that is important for me to know. Not to say that, things that technology doesn't come in when it needs to, or I can't go out and seek that information if I choose to, but I'm creating that relationship, right? And so I think it's really important for us to be empowered and to realize that we have so much. I don't like to use the word power, but to be empowered in the sense that we can create our reality.
Yeah, it's a collective consciousness, they call it. It's actually, you can, as humans, we are here to raise the vibration and raise the kind of energy of people around us. It's the ripple effect. You drop something
Mhm.
in there that is going to create an amazing thing, or you can do the opposite. And it's just about having awareness about what's going on. So, yes, you are worldly connected, but equally, you play a part in this world, and what you give out, you can create a huge community or impact with that. And so, yeah, I love your perspective on things because my brain's churning and I'm like, I'm thinking about some things in a different way. And I love it because I'm also working through my own things and I've been low. I've been to a point where it's like I needed people to challenge my thinking to get out of a certain headspace and things like that. So it's always good to challenge yourself in a way and be curious. Do you think the qualities of curiosity and empathy are expanding in people, or do you think like those qualities are shorter to come by in people given the world that we're in? And yeah, it's a very open-ended question, but I'm curious to know what you think.
Yeah. Well, again, my perception of reality is very probably different than most people. I think for me in my world, absolutely. I think that as a collective, we are becoming more empathetic and what was the first characteristic?
Curious.
Curious. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think especially with our younger generation, I've felt that and noticed it more and more. I have a
Right.
16-year-old and my goodness, she has an amazing amount of empathy and compassion and curiosity about the world that I think a lot of times older generations kinda get washed out in that. And to say that older generations I have worked with, and I actually had a session today with someone who's similar in age to me, maybe a little bit older, that is really and masculine. This is a male that has really had a lot of masculine, strong, authoritative masculine energies early in life and more in the egotistical realm, self-proclaimed in that, and has shifted into more of a spiritual realm of understanding and having more compassion and empathy. So I think that that's even happening across generations, and more people are waking up to understanding that we can help heal ourselves and the world by being empathetic and compassionate and curious and having those inquiries versus, again, blaming or shifting, like, "Woe is me" type of mentality to, "How do I work with these energies, but also these strengths and these instances that have come up?"
Yeah. I think the sometimes the woe is me and I do believe that sometimes we are allowed to sit in that and acknowledge the things that we are going through and also be accepting that, you know what, this is my situation. I'm allowed to feel a bit low. I'm allowed to acknowledge that it's impacting me to a point of then the accountability to move forward in a different way. And I
Mhm.
think when you hold qualities like curiosity, empathy, what was the other one? No, those are the
Compassion.
two. And for yourself, and like you go on the inward journey and you look at that and you, in situations, you offer that to yourself, then you can also offer that to other people without the judgment, shame, criticism that people naturally do because they don't naturally do that for themselves. So it definitely comes back to self, doesn't it? Always. What would you say about you've got children, which is beautiful, and I'm sure you're doing an incredible job. I cannot comment as a parent because I'm not one. So I just wanted to say to all parents out there, you're all doing an incredible job. How has your own journey changed the way you connect with your children now?
Yeah, so I just have the one daughter, but it has been so transformative. I think she's been so healing for me in so many ways. To have just who she is and not necessarily my parenting. I know that I played a role, in her upbringing, a pivotal role, of course, being a parent is a big job for sure. However, just her own demeanor and her own spirit. I will say one thing I wanted to say on our previous topic, as you were talking about, is that spirit is primary. And so I think when we tap into that aspect of who we are and our collective spirit, that's a huge thing. So for my daughter in particular, she's just has such a strong spirit of curiosity and empathy. Empathy is a huge piece of who she is. That's something that is her strong suit, and her compassion towards others, her intelligence as well. So I think realizing that this person, this that I co-created, right, is in the world, and it's just like the most beautiful person that I have ever known. I tell her every day. I mean, she is by
Oh,
far the most beautiful person in and out that I have ever met in my entire life. I cannot take credit for it, like, I mean, she is her own person. She's such an amazing person, and I know that I just play a small role in who she is, and so I'm very grateful, and it's one of the most beautiful things that I've ever gone through and am a part of, and I'm very honored to be her mother.
do you feel you hold the space for her to freely express emotions and talk to you about things? And I'm sure your role is a lot bigger than you're giving yourself credit for because you are the example. Kids learn from their parents. They only have you when they're growing up. So I'm going to rein that back in and give you more credit than you've given yourself because it is a huge job and she is a beautiful individual because of you guys, because you co-created her and the things that you've learned. You've ensured she's safe to be free. And I think I just wanted to honor that for you and celebrate you as what you've done as a parent. So,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Do you feel like she has that space to express differently to how you had that space growing up?
Yes, I think that's been the other piece that has been so amazing to witness and see is her journey in life and not her dealing with the same triggers or the traumas that I had growing up. Raised her very much differently than how I was raised, right? Just in given the times of where we're at and where we live locationally. And yeah, it's just beautiful to see the potential of a human that has had a lot of, just a great foundation and support in her life. In fact, that so much that she has seen what I've done within my travel journey to now she's 16, she'll be a junior next year, and she's going to study abroad in Costa Rica for 10 months with AFS, and so it's a different program than what I did as an exchange student, but I'm so proud of her, and she'll be living with the host family similar to what I was doing, a totally different time. We're in 2026 now, so it'll be through 2027, and very excited for her and what's to come, and I just cannot wait to see what she's going to experience and journey through and accomplish in this life, and that this next year will be huge for her, so I'm very excited for her and proud.
I love that. Well, I'm excited for her too, and I wish her all the best. And, you've been the prime example of how travel and doing these things, and, initially it can be quite scary, but they're really important for your own development to figure out who you are. You're there, but you're not like physically there. So she's then able to be independent and have her mind come in and kick in and go, I can make decisions, but I know my mom and my parents are there to support me when I need them. And I think that's the most incredible thing that you're doing is you're allowing that space for her to think and feel herself and feel the world. How important has travel been for you in your journey? And I know it then ties into the business that you do. Tell me.
Travel's been huge and monumental for me ever since I would been s was 7. We would take family trips to Mexico a lot of times, and my mom would work in Mexico a little bit as an entrepreneur, and so I got a taste of it back then. Really, truly, it's been such a transformative process for me, and I was able to backpack through Europe at the age of 17 with my brother. Very early in life, I was had the privilege and the honor to be able to travel, which I know a lot of people don't have. So it's something that I'm very grateful for. It's been such a instrumental part of my growth, my personal and professional journeys and development, and even studying abroad, as an exchange student in Argentina. And then later in college, I studied abroad in Spain. I was able to become fluent in another language and get my degree in another language, and so in Spanish, and so that was been huge, and I continue to use Spanish almost daily now with customers and people that I work with, and so I'm very grateful for that, and it's just allowed me to see the world in a different perspective and realize that we are in this all together, and just to be super grateful for the things that I have in my life that other people don't, on a daily basis that we often take granted for. So it's been truly healing and transformative, and I'm super excited and honored that I get to share it with my daughter as well and others as I help them. It's very fascinating. It's interesting because at 3 is where I had one of my deepest rooted traumas and childhood traumas. And so I think what I would say to myself now, it would be to honor really truly who I am in that I know myself best, even at the age of 3, when we don't know ourselves, that I'm a spirit, and that is primary. And to honor what I went through as strength and as bravery and not as a victim, not as somebody that something happened to them, but that something happened for them, as hard as it is to accept that. And how it has transformed and created me to be the strong, confident woman that I am today. And that it has just truly enriched my life in ways that I never thought I could ever imagine in providing me that strength and wisdom, even though it was very challenging to realize what I went through at the time. So it's just really truly honoring the divine feminine that's within me and also the divine masculine as well. It's something that I've come to respect and to honor within myself instead of shy away from or shame. I think there's been a bit of shame in the past, and now I've learned to embrace and honor those different aspects of myself, and so that I can be there for others and help other people acknowledge and honor that same divinity within themselves. The biggest way people can find me is on Instagram or on my website. Instagram handle would be Journeyful Inspirations. It's just journey, the word journey, and then full, FULINSPIRATIONS, Journeyful Inspirations. And then also on my website where you can see all the wonderful testimonies that people have left for me, as well as Google. The Google reviews have been amazing as well. But heal.me is the platform that I'm listed on as a holistic practitioner. Again, it's just heal.me, and then you can search for Larissa Lopez there, or you can go to heal.me/journeyful inspirations, and you can see all of my testimonials there, all of my offerings to help people, again, with their inner journeys and outward journeys, all the way from your solar return, your astrological blueprint with your natal report, is something as small as that, or just a one-on-one intuitive healing session, all the way to a transformative process and transformative program within a 12-week, 3-month container that I offer for folks, in addition to travel and all of the wonderful things that you can find, again, on my website or through social media. It's been so lovely, Nisha. I really thank you so much for your time. This has been such an honor to be here.